Hello everybody and welcome to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing something slightly different. Now, every time I put up a battle report or I take some photos or some miniatures or, I do a little scene, like a village scene or something like that, I always get loads of comments. And then now pretty much every single video, I get messages, I get emails requesting to know how I put the tables together and, how I set it all up. Now, to me, it's quite straightforward. I don't think there's any kind of, like hidden magic involved in what I do. I'm constrained by space and by what I have available to me. So I just try to use all those materials and optimize what I can do with them. So today's video, I thought what I'd do, as I've got a game later today, I would actually film myself setting up the table, just showing you what I do and how I do it. So yeah, let's get on with it. Before we go and actually start setting up the table, I wanted to take a minute to just highlight a couple of materials that I use, and I use quite a lot on the table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you over to the desk, and it's going to get messy. So before we get going on, putting the table together for today's game, I think I need to answer probably the most asked question, which is what do I use for my roads? Because it's quite obvious in the battle reports that it's a scatter material. Well, I keep the material in this, which was I think it was for some makeup brushes that my wife had. It's not an urn with ashes in it, although it has been pointed out it does look like that. I create this mix. It's a ground cover mix, and I make this from a variety of materials. The main part of the material is this, which is a cocoa brick. You can just buy these on Amazon or a garden centre. They only cost a couple of quid. And as you can see, I haven't actually used that much, but I rip bits off of this and then I grind it up and I put it through a sieve. It can be quite tough work. I just kind of sit there and work it through with a spoon, and then it helps create a powder. Once that's all been sort of added in, I also use some dirt from the garden, which I've just baked in the oven to essentially sanitize it. I then put that through a sieve as well. I also even chuck in coffee grounds and things like that, because that makes it smell a little bit nicer. Any spare bits of flock and things like that, I also throw in, and then I mix it up in this container. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move this to one side. Now, hopefully, I'm going to do this first try, because I don't want to have to do multiple tries at this. So if I pour some of it out onto here, there we go. Right, so there we go. That is the ground cover mix, as it were. As you can see, it's all been sort of ground down fairly fine. You can see where I've chucked in little bits of flock. So when I'm getting near the end of a bag of flock, or even if I've just got some spare, I just throw it in this tub. Any times I've got little bits left over from basing, rather than trying to separate it all out into the various component parts, I just chuck it all in here, and it just creates this earthy mix, which is really good for doing roads. I also throw it down outside buildings, or in fields or areas where I want to show rough ground, and that's it. That's all that is. It's very, very simple to make, very, very simple to use, and then once it's all done, I just sweep it all up. Obviously it's going to leave a little bit of residue, but what I do afterwards, which is, well, you might see, I don't know if I film myself doing this, but once I've gathered this all back up, which I have a little dustpan and brush for doing, there you go, cheap little dustpan and brush. Once I've swept up all of this off my gaming table, at the end of the gaming session, I take the mat outside again, and I just shake it off, and I only lose a very, very small amount, and it's so cheap and easy to make, and I think it looks great. So it lets me to be versatile with the roads, and I've got enough in here to cover a big part of the battlefield. So there we go. That's what I use for the roads. So the next thing that I use on the tables, which I think every wargamer should use, it's very easy to get hold of, is different coloured lichens, or just a variety of brown and green ones. I get it in bags like this. These are from World War Scenics, and these will do me for quite a long time. Eventually these will end up just probably mixed together. This stuff is great for representing bushes, or if you want to, just indicate areas of rough ground. But what I tend to do is I just tend to rip it up really small, like this, and then you'll see in a minute in the video, there'll be a stage of this video where I'm just walking around sprinkling this on the table, because I think it gives it the look of little bushes and shrubs and weeds and areas of moorland which aren't necessarily being kept very well. It's also great for hiding, you know, the edges in terrain. So on bases and things like that, you can sort of mask it a little bit by just putting this down, and it looks like there's been some bushes that built up. So along with the roads, those are the two material types that I just wanted to kind of get out the way at the start of the video. So let's go and start putting this table together for today's game. Right, let's get going. Let's clear away the detritus here. My girls have been making potions. Apparently one of them's a luck potion. Maybe I should take it before today's game. So today's game is going to be played on a 4x4. Well, the actual area needed is 4x3, but I'll always build up a 4x4. There we go. So we've got that down. Okay, so for today's game, which is a medieval game, I'm going to be setting up a bit of a half and half. So I'm going to do this area here will be built up, so maybe the outskirts of a town, small town, village. Then this area here is mostly going to be field systems, maybe a couple of sort of areas of trees, and then just strip fields. But first thing we need to do is build up the ground forms. So what I use is a lot of tea towels. So for setting up the ground forms, I tend to use lots of tea towels, other mats that I've got, and old Iron Maiden and Blind Guardian t-shirts. So I like my battlefields to be undulating. Nothing wrong at all with playing on a completely flat surface, but it's very, very rare that the ground is ever completely flat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this up here. So I've got an area of just raised ground, and then my buildings can sit quite nicely on that. So let's put this out along here, and you can, reason I use cloths and t-shirts and things is because the models, they stand on them a lot easier than everything else. And you can sort of mold these to the shape that you want. So, and then I'm going to use the tea towels to create the slopes. And then you can play around with all of this, as you'll see. So this is a fairly straightforward process. Now, if you want to create any kind of sunken roads or things like that, what you can do is essentially just leave gaps. Now, those of you who asked how I did the river in one of our last tables, essentially all I did was like create a thing like this. So when I've got my overall mat, which will be my grass mat, when I put it over top, I could just push it down and then put the river into this, so it appeared it was actually, you know, sunken. Right, let's do that there. So we've got a big area of high ground up there, and then all this outside the village, a bit lower. Maybe what I'll actually do here, because this bit seems to, I'll make that a bit shallower, the slope there. And then what I'm going to do over here is just have bits like that. So there's our main ground form. So we're going to have the village up here on high ground. So we're going to have some buildings probably coming this way, like that. And then the rest of it, yeah, just be fields. Let's go get the main map. So I use Geek Villain fleece battle mats. I think they're really, really good quality, and I like the way the fleece sort of conforms to the stuff I put underneath it. If using like neoprene, they look great, but you don't get those undulations, and I like to sort of create a bit of a landscape, and I find that this is a bit easier. This mat is the grassy hill one. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. Now, you've got to kind of move it around a little bit to get rid of the creases. But yeah, maybe I'll fast forward this bit. I really hope this video, people actually enjoy this, because in my brain, this is probably going to be really dull. Okay, so as I've got my ground forms and everything ready, it's time to add the majority of the scenery. So I'm going to be putting down my buildings, which are going to be focused up here. I'm going to be putting down walls to create paddocks, and then I'm going to put down trees just to, you know, break things up a little bit. Now, I've got to bear in mind that there's meant to be, in this game, a piece of terrain every square foot of playing area. Now remember, because I'm building this table, the playing area is actually a 3x4, not a 4x4. So that means the 12 square foot in the middle of the board should have one piece per square foot. Now, I'm never going to 100% follow the terrain placement rules. Ultimately, I like to build nice looking tables and believable tables. And if I think something looks good, or if I think something looks like it wouldn't exist, I just won't do it. I'd rather make the rules of the game fit the table rather than the table fit the rules of the game, if that makes sense. Right then, let's get to it. I'm going to stick a little village up here, some town, you know, like I said. Let's just see what happens. It's going to be a bit of trial and error. Let's see what we can put together. Right, okay, so this is the basic layout of what I've got. Now it's time to add the roads and just essentially start putting on the scatter. So I'm going to put a road coming down here. I'm going to have a road coming over the crest of this hill down here that connects here and then goes off in that direction over there. So, you know, you can sort of see where people will have been traveling. I'll be adding scatter into the areas in front of the houses. But in here, I'm probably going to put some crop fields, so I'll go grab those in a minute, and then we'll start adding on a few more details. Okay, so I've got all of that down, and now essentially all I do is I use this brush and I just sort of feather everything out, make sure I go up to the building edges and I connect it all together to create our roads and our areas of hard going. I'll further define this in a minute on the roads with lichen, which I use at the edges of the roads to create little bushes, and it just helps define it for the eye anyway, where the edges of those roads are. So when we're playing, we know when someone is on a road and when they're not, and when it's just sort of, you know, an area of rough ground. Okay, so I'm just going to add in these little patches of teddy bear fur. These are really good for depicting little crop fields. And you can create your little enclosures for them. I've got one, like, varying sizes. That one will probably, is that going to fit? Yeah. Let me squidge it in a little bit. Right, it's starting to get there. Now I'm just going to start adding on the lichen. So this is the current bag of mixed stuff that I've got, a bit similar to what I showed you earlier. So what I'm going to do first of all is just plug any gaps in the walls where I don't want those gaps. Sometimes they look good as little entrances, but other times I don't like. I just like to have something there. I often put stuff in here, you know, where in a game you don't really, you know, you want someone coming through. So to denote it as sort of impassable or built up, I'll just chuck extra bits in. I often put a good amount around the bases of trees just to help define the area. And as I say, I also like to put it along the edges of the roads. I like to break it up a little bit, so not one long chunk, and it just helps denote what's going on. So I'm going to get going. I'm going to add this on, and then we'll have some finishing touches. Right, so there it goes. That is essentially 99% of it done. I've just got a few little things to add for some finishing touches. I made these sort of thicker areas of sort of gorse bushes and things the other day, just where I thought that you might need to sort of like there to just sort of, you know, break things up a little bit more. And then I've just got some bits to add in just to make the area look lived in. And that's it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put these finishing touches on, and then I'm going to come back to you in a second. Okay, so here's the battlefield. It's done and ready for tonight's game. Now, I don't know which side of a table I'm going to end up on tonight. I don't know what the deployment zones are going to be tonight, but I think I've fulfilled the brief. We've got some areas of open ground, some areas of, I wouldn't say difficult ground, but with a few obstacles, and then a bit of a built-up area up the top. So we can have a clash down here, maybe some cavalry action, and up there's some stuff for sort of, you know, house to house, paddock to paddock fighting. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. I have no idea if this is what people wanted to see. This was the only way I could really think of doing this. And I have to say, this has probably been one of the most stressful videos that I've made. I normally don't think about it as much as I have when I'm doing this. You know, as I've been putting these tables together, and as I found various ways and techniques of doing things, I just do them. So actually sitting down and having to think of a way to explain or to show it is actually quite hard. But anyway, there we go. So here we are. So we have our village. So up here we have a bit more of a larger dwelling, a bit more of an expensive one. I added a few little bits and bobs to the outside of the house just to sort of make it look lived in. I don't like to add too many random things to the table yet, because I don't know if we're going to be using objectives, and I don't want things to get confusing. So after we've set down objectives, sometimes I add on a few other bits and bobs like wildlife and things like that. So it's always worth keeping a few bits. There's the road, as it were, the bypass around the village. And then over here, it's the inaugural outing of my little gorse bushes. So these will block terrain, these ones. We normally say that bits like this, they don't block anything, but these ones on bases are actually you know, quite dense, and no one's getting through them. So so you won't be able to move those. You're actually gonna have to go around those. So some nice little obstacles to put down. But yeah, let's have a look at it from this end. Obviously I have to think about where things are for the purposes of the video as well. There's no point in having a sort of main piece of the board out of shot of the camera, or just or where it's going to be constantly getting in the way. But no, I think we have a decent looking battlefield here. I just hope that the game plays as well. There we go. Well, I really hope that that's helped and answered some questions. If not, I'm sorry. Pop the questions down below. I'll leave links to where I buy things like the coconut fibre and the lichen. And swatches of teddy bear fur from. It's not a good idea. I mean, if like me, if you got kids, if they got teddies that are gonna, that aren't really good enough to donate, so there is a plentiful source of of terrain. You just start feeling a little bit like the Predator going after his trophies. But I can assure you that no teddy bears were harmed in the making of this video. There we are. Well, I've probably babbled on enough, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.